Like to welcome everybody. We'll get started here in about 5 minutes. I do apologize. We do not have the version of the webinar where we can have an interactive where people can talk, unfortunately. So we do have on your screen, there is a chat section as well as a question. You can ask questions in there or send a message to me on the chat, and we'll try to answer them. Hopefully we'll get this all figured out by our next one. We will be having a president one and a secretary version of this webinar series. We are currently scheduled for look at the calendar. We'll be having those on a Thursday evening. On the 21st, it will be the president, and the 28th will be the secretary at 7 p.m. Hopefully there'll be an hour to an hour and a half. We have scheduled for an hour and a half. We'll be sending out emails, and you can make sure you let your other club officers know about those. We will be doing a different version where we hopefully will be able to have interactive and chat back and forth. Like I said, I apologize at this point. We didn't have time to put this together the other way. So again, if you have any questions, you can use the question part or the chat. Either one will work, and we'll try to get everything answered for you. So I just sent everybody a poll. If anybody is having problems either hearing me or seeing my screen, please let me know on the poll. All right, thank you very much. Looks like we're pretty much in business. So I will go ahead and end that poll and put my picture back, and I'll introduce myself. My name is Mike Collins. I'm the first Vice District Governor for District 37, Lions in the state of Montana. I have been a club treasurer for, I've lost count. Many of you are in that situation. I don't know if I have another poll question a little later about if anybody is a new treasurer. And I've also been a district treasurer several times, so got a little background on that. Welcome again. I do apologize that we cannot, we cannot have you guys speak to us in this version of this webinar. We are working on that, but so please use the question section, and there should be you should see a chat section, and you will also should be able to see a handout section. In the handout is this PowerPoint presentation we're going to go through, as well as the Club Treasurer ebook and another training workbook for treasurers. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to talk today about the treasurer responsibilities, the club accounts and budgets, member dues, payments, financial policies for your club, and financial records. The treasurer, as a treasurer, you have a little more responsibility than just counting money. Number one, you are expected to attend as many club and board meetings as possible. Prepare the club budgets. Hopefully, we'll talk about budgets a little more. Hopefully, your club has a budget. If they don't, I highly, highly recommend that your club does a budgeting process. It helps with planning, as well as some you can have in your, and we'll talk about this later too, but you can have in your constitution bylaws that budgeted items for certain deals do not necessarily need club approval to write a check then. Again, we'll mention that later. You can set you're partly responsible along with the board to set your dues, as we'll discuss how the dues break down, but your club can charge club section for dues, as well as the dues that you have to pay to international and the district. Making payments, you got the check, but normally the treasurer would have the checkbook. You have some options there. Our club has a dual signature required on the checkbook, but you may or may not have to have that in your club, depending on how your club's policies. You're the person that gets to do the reporting and financial records and make sure you've got all the receipts, and the tax filings and things like that are part of the treasurer duties. And of course, you will report your financial information, what has been spent, what typically with ours, we report budget items, whether we were, above budget, below budget, on things like income and expenses. So those financial reportings are part of your duties. And of course, then we're going to talk the tax man. Because we are, we'll talk about a little bit about our financial, our tax status, but there is a report that you have to file with the IRS annually. That report doesn't match the normal tax year. At the April 15th, it does match normally the Lions budget year. So we'll chat about that in a little bit later. And where's that? Hopefully your treasurer report will be a little more than that. All right. So Lions International highly recommends, because of um, we want to make sure that any money that comes from the public, because on behalf of donations or fundraisers or uh, those type of things, all needs to go back to the public. That's a mandatory in the Constitution and bylaws of Lions. You cannot use public money for paying for nice Lions shirts or membership dues, things like that cannot be paid out of these activity accounts. That's why Lions recommends having two separate accounts for these, a checking account and a for both of them. So we got the activity accounts as public projects and grants only. Um, Again, it's from public fundraising or donations. You cannot use that money for um, club expenses. Administrative funds are used for the internal running of the club, things like postage. Um, you get that money from dues. That's why your club may want to charge, in addition to the existing dues, tail twisting, donations to the club from members only. Things like that. Those things are administrative expenses. You cannot use your activity money to have a dinner for club members. All that would need to come from club members themselves. You can use for your activities expenses related to either fundraising or projects. So if you have our club has a rifle raffle. That's our biggest fundraiser. Tickets are available right now. Um, anyway, the printing of these tickets is an expense that can be done out of your activity account, because it is part of the fundraising. But so that is an acceptable expense from an activity account. It's very important because we love this is we want to tell people, you give us money, you buy our rifle raffle tickets, that money is going to be spent on Lions projects and activities to help people. So there is a part, and you can there are some gray areas, but our club does we work at a local gun show twice a year, helping check weapons coming in and out of the gun show, and we get paid for that. We don't, if you don't represent yourself as Lions, especially vests, wear vests to that kind of event, you can put that money in your administrative account because you're earning money not from the public, but from another organization that understands that. And then you can move that, if you put it in your administrative account and then you end up with too much in there, you can move it to your activities account. That is perfectly acceptable. You cannot go the other way. You cannot move money from activities to administrative. But it is acceptable if for some reason your administrative account is growing, you can move that money into activities. You can't move it back once you do that, but you can move it into activities and spend it on the public. Anybody have any questions on that so far? All right. Club budgets. Normally they're done within your club, depending on the size of your club, but normally you'd have a small committee to set your annual budgets. Um, um, to and then the board would approve, and if you have a board, the board or the whole club would approve the budget for the upcoming year. Again, there should be separate budgets for administrative and activity accounts. Budgets are guidelines. In any budgeting thing, they're not fixed. Sometimes in our club, the budgets, we always budget a little money for expenses. Somebody walks in the door and does a spiel to your club and says, we want money for this, then we always budget some for that as we go throughout the year. This year, of course, is going to be a very different year in terms of our income is going to be down. We've had one of our fundraising events canceled. So we're going to have to expect that our budget is, for example, this is my club's. Now you got to swear to secrecy. No, but it's fine. But this is our budget, activity budget for the year. This is our expected income. Like I said, we've already lost some of our income where our rifle raffle sales are running behind schedule. Hopefully we'll get that, but we may have to spend more or less than our what we budgeted. You don't have to spend what you budgeted, and you can spend more. It's a guideline. We meet every week. I do a budget report to our club every week, but again, it's up to your club to decide how often that you want reports on your budgets as well as your expenses. I normally do budget reports and check register reports. We'll talk a little bit about reporting later on what you can do and the best type of reports for clubs. Okay, this is a confusing area for people sometimes because we are billed from international. We are billed, it's right now $43. They want to raise that, but because we didn't have a convention this year, that's not going to happen. So it's still $43 and annually, but they bill twice a year. So you get billed in January and in July. For regular members, it's $21.50 of those 2 times, total of $43. You do have family memberships where the second member is charged half price. They've got to be technically got to be living in the same household. Family members, then the second is half price. There is a lifetime membership. And I forget the qualifications exactly, but they pay no dues after, you've got to be a Lion for quite a few years and then pay a lump sum. New members, there is an entrance fee of $35 when you put in a new member. There are at times exceptions and or promotions. They had a promotion. Well, I don't think there's anything going on right now. They had a promotion for veterans at one point to waive the entrance fee. There usually, you'll get emails sometimes with promotions, things like that. So, and here's the part that people miss. We get every time that the district bills in January, people say, well, I already got that bill and already paid it, but that was probably your international dues bill. So you will get international billing you for half a year in January, and District 37 will bill $25 in January. Currently, there is no family membership in the district. There has been discussion about that, but life members at international also will not be billed by the district. Do you have any questions on dues? Then you can add a club. Oh, I forgot. And you can add your club dues. Our club charges members, I believe, $7 additional above the international and district dues. That helps fund our administrative account. Of course, the treasurer is responsible for paying the bills. Things like, out of the administrative, it would be club supplies, printing. If you're printing a brochure for your club, that would be under administrative. Payments to dues, to LCI and the district. Under activities, expenses related to fundraising or public projects, things like advertisements, materials, items for raffles, those are acceptable to be paid out of your activity budget. Again, I discussed this depending on club policies. All payments may require a vote of the board or the club. Some clubs allow the treasurer to issue payments for budget items as long as they do not exceed the budget. All right, on to financial records. So I've got a file cabinet over here that I keep all my Lions stuff in, which I've got, I keep all the records. Technically, since you are a nonprofit, it's normally 7 years that you're supposed to keep all those financial records for. Receipts, check records, financial reports, bank statements, canceled checks, those types of things all should be kept for 7 years. I've never ever heard of a club being audited by the government, IRS or state, but again, that's the requirement, is to keep these records for 7 years. I wanted to ask before we went any farther, I'm going to do another little survey just to see if we've got, wrong one. Okay, so there was just the question of if you're a new treasurer. Oh, we do have some new treasurers. Good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And there's the results of the poll. So we have 50 and 50 right now of the people that voted. Good. All right, so hopefully I'm not going too quickly through this. Like I said, the club, and there are some handouts. The club treasurer ebook is very helpful for that. In your handouts, you can download that. Hopefully nobody's pretending to listen here. Okay, so we're going to jump over to my LCI real quickly. As a new treasurer or an existing treasurer, if you haven't got this set up, so this is the MyLion login. I'm going to put that in the chat box. Oops. Oh, that's interesting. Don't know what I did there. Anyway, if you've never signed up for your Lions account, you need to go to the register. It will ask you if you've ever registered on the My Lion app. If you have not or don't know what that is, click no. It will then ask you, you'll need to know your member ID, email address if you want to use that, or a mobile number and a password, and it will sign you up. If you do have any problems, there is a there is an 800 number, and I don't see it on here. That you can call, and I will get that for you and add it to the chat box. Once you are signed up, you can log in this section. And sometimes it does weird stuff. Okay, so we'll take you to this. This is their fairly new screen that combines a bunch of things, where the one you're looking for is to go to My LCI. And we'll talk about the learning part again later. So My LCI, unfortunately, I have multiple titles. So if you're just like said, here I'm a treasurer, so this is what your screen would look like for your club for treasurer. The treasurer can't do a lot in here. You can't change a lot of things. You can't add members. You can't change member information. You can't. You're limited to what you can do. How's that? I guess when I did the poll, it turned my screen off. Okay. Sorry about that. I guess when I did the poll, it turned my screen off. I didn't realize that. It's always a learning experience. Anyway, so once you log in, let me back up. So again, this is the okay, this is where I talked about the register. There's the register button. This is the sign in. And once you sign in, it takes you to this. This is the new screen. What you're looking to do is My LCI. I've got to change this because I have different roles. But when you're a club treasurer, like I said, you're pretty limited to what you can do. You will have things, if you have dues due, you will have things under your pending tasks occasionally. Like I said, you cannot change a lot of things because you're fairly limited as the treasurer on what you can and cannot do. Primarily, your function in here would be to get your statements. So you go to My Lions Club statements dues, So then it will tell you, for example, if your club owed any money, here's our we haven't owed any for a while, but then you can go back and look at your statements. You can also make a payment here. So it's a good thing for your club to have a debit card or credit card sometimes, because they're going more towards electronic methods. But this is what a dues statement from International would look like. So basically, we have 25 regular members at $21.50, 2 lifetime members no charge, and 3 family members, so they pay half. So this would have been our bill for our January dues bill. Again, you can pay these, you can send them in, you can print them out and send them in, or you can pay them electronically. And really, that's the biggest function that treasurers have in Lions Club. They are still mailing these out. You can opt out of paper statements or opt in for paper statements on this page. If you would prefer to get them in the mail, you can get paper statements still. How long they'll keep doing that, it's hard to say, but you can get paper statements. So so that's the biggest part of my LCI is really the like I said, you're as a secretary or treasurer, you're pretty much limited. You can't add new members. You can't change much of anything. So that's primarily the function of my LCI. I did want to point out the other thing that's available on this screen is what's called the Lions Learning Center. You can go to the online training. And there are, if you haven't been in here before and you're listed as a treasurer, it should come up with the what's called the treasurer club treasurer learning path. If not, you can go to the content library. It'll bring up everything, but here's the club treasurer learning path. It's basically got 2 modules, club officer training, which talks about your club, how things should run in your club, things like that. And then there's a club treasurer responsibility section. It will repeat some of this stuff, and some of it's new. It's worth taking a look at. The other thing that's in here that the treasurer, I believe, can do is this. The store is in here now, so you can go shopping for Lion stuff. Again, budget reports, I do one at every meeting, but I may email out a budget report to our club every month. I do a check register report every month. It is recommended that your club audit the treasurer records once a year. It can be very simple, just a couple of members to go through and look at, it doesn't need to be a heavy duty audit, but for the club's protection, it's highly recommended that you do annual audits of the treasurer information. And then, of course, taxes. Good old taxes. So, under Lions Club International, your club is a sub organization of Lions Club International, which makes your club what is called a 501c4. A 501c4 is basically a nonprofit organization, but it is not I'm sorry, non-taxable organization. So your, but your club, it is not a, stumbling on this one. A 501c3 is a full nonprofit tax exempt organization, meaning that somebody donates money to your 501c3, that money is tax deductible to the person donating it. Technically, a 501c4, if someone donates $10,000 to your club, that money is technically not tax deductible to that person. A 501c4 is primarily just a tax exempt organization, and it's under the umbrella of Lions Club International. So a Lions Club that would want to have a fully tax deductible organization, a 501c3, would need to do a separate organization, and some clubs haven't done that in the past. I know the Billings Lions Club used to have one. There are a few more around the state that do that, but just keep that in mind. You're not under any mandatory requirement to explain that to people, but if somebody comes to your club with a big donation, I would be cautious about it. One of our big fundraisers we used to do was a strides walk to get, not to get around, to meet those requirements, because we were asking companies to donate money. We partnered with the local hospital foundation and ran, all the money was donated, was run through their 501c3. So then they got a tax ID and everything else. Your club has a tax ID. When it was established, if you do not know what your tax ID is, there is a lookup on the IRS to search for it. So, for example, you can search for Lions Club, Lions, search for things in Lions in Kalispell. So here's the danger of not filing your taxes every year. They will auto revoke your, technically auto revoke your nonprofit standing. Again, I have never heard of any consequences of them going after anybody, but I would highly recommend, if you're, for example, this is the Kalispell Sunrisers, the other club in Kalispell, they've been auto revoked because they haven't been filing their tax. It's really, and you'll see here in a minute, it's actually very simple. It's called a 990N postcard. You actually used to have a physical postcard you mailed in. This is an online, it takes about less than 10 minutes to do it. You don't have to do any kind of full financial reporting unless you don't meet the minimums, and I'm going to get to, I forget what they are, but this is ours right here. So you will, once you look it up, you can find your EIN. You'll need that to file them. So there's their, for example, there's their EIN, there's our club EIN. I'm not sure what that is. There's lots of interesting stuff that comes up if you do this search. I am not sure of the process to get your standing back. I have not looked that up, but I would recommend, again, if your club has not filed, that you proceed to do that, because technically, like I said, I've never heard of any consequences to this, but technically when they revoke you, you're basically not a nonprofit anymore. And they could legally make you file a real tax form and pay taxes on any income of your club has. So this is important stuff to stay on the right side of the government. Any questions on that, or? So the 990N, you'll have to create it. You would have to create an account if you're not aware of it. But it just will, you need to know your EIN and it'll walk through to create account. I have a password manager, so that's why it's filling in the passwords for me. So for example, this is just telling us our login history. So the e-postcard, basically your our club budget years actually runs differently. So we actually budget our year on the calendar year. Most clubs budget their year on June or July through June. So So anyway, basically, it's got about 3 questions you got to answer when you submit the E99 postcard. I was going to get back to that. I believe now the income level is 50,000. So if your club makes $50,000 or less, that's one of the questions. You say yes, we made less than $50,000. Answer the 4 questions, and you've filed your taxes. If it's more than that, I would recommend getting a little accountant help. They're not complicated. They're still a 990 filing, but they do require a little more tax information. It is more like a tax form. The state of Montana does not require that you file any tax forms at this point for a nonprofit organization. There is a registration. Your club probably was registered, but that's not necessarily the fall under the treasurer role. But there is an annual $25 fee that you're supposed to pay to the state of Montana to maintain your nonprofit status for the state of Montana. I do not have that login and information anywhere here, but like I said, you can download this presentation in the handouts, and so it does have these links in the presentation. If you've got PowerPoint, you can pull up the links. Plus, I will email out all to participants some of the other links in there that are in this presentation and stuff. Okay, here's just some general guidelines recommended for your club and our treasurer. Like I said, we board of directors should formally approve all bank accounts. It's a bit of a pain nowadays because to change a signee on the bank account, as for example, if you change treasurers, now the law requires that you produce a meeting or board minutes stating that Joe Lyon is now the treasurer of the Kalispell Lions Club, and you've got to take that to the bank to get them to put signatures on. Like I said, our club, and it's recommended that we have 2 signee on the checks, usually another board officer. Bonding, again, really up to a club, but it's highly recommended. We have a bond for what's it called? Basically, we're bonded in case I decided to abscond with all the funds. The club would be bonded to protect against that. It's pretty cheap. It costs us $100 a year. So it's recommended. It's not very expensive. Again, audit records annually. Simple audit, look at the checks, look to make sure there's receipts. Don't have to look at every single one, just make sure that things are being done properly. Again, we talked about, the board approving checks. They may pre-authorize paying expenses for fixed buildings. Again, the club, we don't operate like the government. We can't go in debt. I would not, we don't want to do that. This is a, one of our members that says we should spend every dime every year. I don't know if I'd recommend going that far, but we collect all this. We collect money from people, and we to give back to people or to do things in our community to help our communities out. So it's a balance, but we're not here to just collect big money. Anyway, little side lecture of mine. So this is the Club Treasurer ebook I talked about that you can download. Has a lot of similar information. I got a lot of this presentation from that. It talks about the Learning Center, which is in a different place now, but my LCI. You do have some various membership types and categories. Normally, the treasurer is responsible. This can vary club to club. Normally, the treasurer would build the invoices. Since it's just convenient, I just bill them and send them out rather than pass them to the secretary to do that. Again, it's up to the club how you feel like and how it's been done in the past. Our club used to have the secretary do it all, but since the treasurer's got to get the money, like I said, we do that. Oh, I know what I was going to show you. The other thing, that a treasurer can do in my LCI, and again, this is up to your club on deciding whose role is this, who's more computer literate and everything else. You can print, the treasurer and the secretary both can print membership cards. So either one of you can do it. You can buy business card stock in either 8 per page or 10 per page. You pick that. Of course, this is for A4. Of course, is non-American. This is letter size paper. You select the month when they're going to expire. So if you're printing them for next year, you might, they might expire in June. Pick all your members, and then it'll print it to a PDF, which you can print to the cards. Like I said, either the treasurer or secretary can do that. So that is available for you to do. So these ebooks are really nice. They've got a lot of links to other things. Like I said, they're not specific to your club in Montana, but they're very useful to take a look at. I would like to, do we have any questions at this point? Okay. If we don't, if anybody needs, especially some of you new treasurers need help with any of this, especially with the IRS or like I said, the e-postcard filings, or finding your EIN, or any questions about that, please contact me. Let me see here. Where'd the chat go? Oops. I have just sent, and I don't know if somebody said they were having trouble seeing the chat, but there's my cell phone and my email address in the chat box. All right, if we don't have any questions, it looks like we whipped right through this. Well, it's a pleasure. I hope you got some information out of this. And like I said, we will be doing secretaries and president ones coming up next week and the week after on Thursday evenings. I will, your president or secretary will be getting the contact information. Like I said, please feel free to contact me if you need any help with any of these types of things. And like I said, I will email everybody out some other links that we that weren't there, including the My LCI I thought I had on there, but I appreciate everybody getting here on a Saturday night, and like to thank you all for coming. And hopefully you guys will have a great year with your clubs this year. Hopefully we'll get back to being able to be out in public and doing what Lions do and helping people out. Everybody, I'd like to thank you for coming. I did see there are some questions, and I'm going to answer them right now. I didn't see them coming up.